Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Albion Obsessed podcast. We are at the end of the season, so we thought we would end this season with a guest appearance. Now, we haven't had a hat trick appearance yet. Stephen Edwards, you are the first man to get the Albion Obsessed hat trick ball. Thanks for joining us today. How are you, mate?
No, thank you. I feel honoured. So thank you very much.
No worries at all. We've got lots to speak about: the Tunnel Club's debut season and serving Marmite Bread to the players at the awards. I
Yes.
can't wait to ask about that. That's going to be good fun. We're also joined by Alex. Alex, mate, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Joe. Not bad. Saturday morning, so looking forward to the bank holiday weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Going for a picnic on Monday, so hopefully the weather holds up. It better do, because otherwise I'll be having words with the weatherman. Enough about the weatherman. Let's talk more about food. Alex, I invited you on this podcast and you got very excited because you have actually eaten quite a few times at Etch. No?
Just the ones, Joe. Just the ones I've been
Oh,
lucky
just the
enough to
one.
eat. Yeah, which was a couple of years ago for my birthday, and it was quite an experience. And Stephen, yeah, thank you. I mean, it's an incredible space, first of all, and then the menu. I really like eating out in Brighton. There's lots of great restaurants to choose from, but this was something else. I I remember the Marmite bread, quite amazing. I'm a big fan of Marmite, so that was a huge thing for me. I know that's just the Marmite bread, and it's like, how is that so good? But also the Japanese garden, like the little Japanese garden, the cherry blossom one, that was just amazing. And I think for me, it's like, how do you take that and transfer it into kind of the club setting, and that intricacy and the quality, and how do you transfer that?
Yeah, I think the quality is really important. The intricacy, we just have to be careful how intricate we go, because we are serving 60 people in about 2.5 hours before kickoff.
Wow,
And
yeah.
ultimately, the Brighton team is the main show, and we just want to elevate what they're doing on the pitch. But I've really enjoyed the first season so far. I love the fact that I'm working with Brighton and Hove Football Club. I just feel really proud.
Definitely. Have there been any unexpected challenges that you've had to face this season in the debut season, or has it been quite smooth sailing?
I'd say, touch wood, so far it's been quite smooth sailing. Challenges tend to be the kickoff times. I think an early weekend kickoff, the earliest we've had so far has been 2:00. And I'm really grateful for that, because nobody really comes at about 11:30. They're all coming at 12:30, and that just squashes that window to serve everybody, makes it a little bit more chaotic, but it's completely understandable. I know there were some rumours about 11:00 kickoffs for next season, and that worries me a little bit. But we'll have to adapt and come up with a breakfast style menu.
Definitely. Are you then on the side of Jurgen Klopp that you hate early kickoffs?
I just hate the fact that everything feels a little bit more rushed, and I think for me and my profession, we want to do things right and to the best of our ability. If suddenly you've got an hour taken away from what you need to do, then that would put anyone under pressure.
Yeah, definitely. What's the feedback been like then across this season? Because I mean, it seems amazing what you guys are doing in the Tunnel Club, and I guess the feedback has been very much similar.
Yeah, the feedback's been really positive. What's nice is that we get instant feedback. The kitchen's semi-open. When I'm in, I'm always walking around speaking to the members, and I want them to almost have their say on the menu, as long as it sticks with my philosophy of using like the best British ingredients and really showcasing quality produce. I think it was one of their suggestions on like the second or third game to do beef Wellington, and then that's kind of like being a staple since, and that's kind of like the style of food that we go for, something that is quality. Easy to serve, maybe harder to prep, but easy to serve when it's done right.
Is there stuff that transfers between the two? Does stuff come from the restaurant to the club, and does anything ever go the other way?
No, I think we keep it as two very separate businesses. We need to do that. But in terms of ideas, absolutely, there is. Well, I say ideas, flavour combinations. So we've got a great strawberry dessert on at Etch at the moment, which combines hay with strawberries, so that a little bit unusual. And then we did that combination the other day So it's like a hay diplomat cream we do in the restaurant. We dip it in a strawberry jelly, and then we just simplify that for the Tunnel Club, and did like a hay panna cotta, which went down really well.
Yeah, what's that balance been like then with obviously you having Etch and the Tunnel Club as well this season? Has that been a challenge to sort of bounce between the two, or has it been quite easy?
I'd say it's been. I mean, it's always a challenge having like multi venues. So I also do a lot of work up in Richmond still with the Bingham River House. I've got a wedding there tonight, cooking for 40 people. But what's really good is I've got an amazing team around me, and we all communicate. We try and map out as much as we can, so there's no surprises. What we don't want is someone to say, "Oh, I'm on holiday next week." That should never happen. I'm really fortunate as well that when chefs leave to go on to different jobs for whatever reason, they're always wanting to work with me again, which is really nice. So that could be a day off for them that they're earning a little bit of extra money, and seeing what we're doing at the Tunnel Club, which is really nice.
That's good to hear. You got a good team around you. That's always important, and obviously transfers to what we like to talk about towards the end of the podcast with you, Stephen, is the Albion and the team cohesion this season, which is going to be quite interesting to get your take on that. Before we move on to this season, and obviously the glaring news that De Zerbi has left and who's going to replace him, what was it like cooking for the players at the end of season awards? That must have been some honour.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was a little bit weird having it before the end of the season, I'm not going to lie. But when I was asked to do it, excuse me, it was like a massive honour. A couple of weeks before that, I'd already done a charity event at the club, and we were asked to cook 450 Marmite Bread. So we were well versed in it. And I think because of that, it actually made it a little bit easier to do for the player awards. But typically I say yes to these things and not really realise like the scale of the operation. 450 Marmite Bread is easily like 2.5 weeks worth of bread in the restaurant, for example. So to do that just in one go was a challenge. But like I said, we had a good team. It took two chefs 8 hours to do. So pretty full on.
That's crazy. Now, Marmite is an acquired taste. So I imagine the players that have come from abroad might not have tasted Marmite before. Did you get any feedback from any of the players to say, I've never had that before and I love it?
They all loved it. Yeah, they all loved it, but maybe they were just being nice. I think, Alex has tried the bread. The thing with the bread is it has got a lot of Marmite in it, but it's more yeasty. I'd say it's more like a really rich yeasty bread. That sort of umami flavour. A lot of people wouldn't like Marmite when it's like thickly spread on toast or a crumpet. I think it was like Adam Richmond on Twitter yesterday, who was, he's an American, and he was talking about the obsession with Marmite, and he had like spread Marmite quite thickly on a crumpet. And if it's going to be your first experience of it, I probably wouldn't do that, if that makes sense.
I absolutely adore Marmite. So anyone that doesn't like it, come at me and we will have a conversation because it is beautiful.
Also,
Alex, what's your experience of trying that?
Yeah, I quite like Stephen said. It's not as in your face as you think. It's quite subtle and yeasty, and but eating at Etch is that experience is just amazing. And anywhere like that where you're getting the taste and menu experience, you're getting your drinks paired with it. I actually wasn't drinking at the time, so I had the juices, which were insane. I've never had the those. That is special. I mean, to make those kind of non-alcoholic tasting menus to pair with it all was incredible. But yeah, I mean, the experience as a whole was just fantastic. It's an amazing journey. Is exactly what it is.
Nice one. Alex is trying to get a free table at the moment.
When I first launched Etch, I used to write Marmite Bread on the actual menu. Now we just write bread and butter. And the amount of people that would be like, on the dietary is one no Marmite, one no Marmite. And I was like, this is the worst signature dish you could possibly have. So now we just like bread and butter. It's almost like a little bit of a surprise when we put it down to people that you can see they don't like Marmite because they almost take a little bit of a sit backwards. But no, it always goes down well.
And that's the great thing about the subtlety of the menu as well, is that you don't get a lot of information, right? So you can go and look ahead, but you still don't know what's going to turn up on your table in front of you. It's always a surprise, and a very pleasant one at that. It's good.
I think that's important, and it's how we kind of write the menus at the Tunnel Club as well. I think you just got to be really careful what you write and what you deliver. Like the prawn cocktail comparison, for example, like we've all got a different idea of what a prawn cocktail should be, and as soon as it's written on the menu and you don't get that, it could be the tastiest thing ever, but there'll always be that element of disappointment. So I'm always a believer in like less is more.
Yeah.
Stephen, you would absolutely hate it if I told you my eating habits. I have the palate of a 7-year-old. And
I've got 3 kids, Joe.
I mean, I'm almost 28, mate. So I should be almost 29. Goodness me, I just lost a year. What a disaster. But yeah, my palate is terrible. And I would imagine I would like the Marmite bread because as I say, I like Marmite. But I don't eat Christmas dinner.
Right.
I just have mashed potato or whatever I like. And then I don't like curries. I don't like anything spicy. I'm very boring when it comes to food. So when I hear you guys talk about the food, I'm somewhat jealous that you can just sort of like go, yeah, I love this, because food terrifies me. So Stephen, how do I become not terrified of food?
You need to come to Etch, mate.
All right,
you come to Etch, I'll look after you, and then you just leave when you want. It could be like a really quick table, to be honest. I was thinking just come in, have the Marmite bread, and then go.
Yeah, I'll do that. Cool. I'll see you later, mate. No, I'm joking.
I think what on a serious note, it's just trying to expand your palate. I think when we talk about flavors and experiences, we all have those things that we don't necessarily enjoy, and that kind of masks our future decisions. You know, when you have a bad experience of something, and that's the other thing about writing menus, that you don't give too much away. The guest is almost like they're forced to try it. A taster menu is a great way to learn about food and to try something, because you haven't committed. You know, with a 2 or 3 course menu, that could really ruin your night if you had a dish that the flavors weren't to your liking. But on a taster menu, you could learn something new and try something different.
Yeah, how does that work in a restaurant setting? Because everything's an acquired taste, really.
Yeah.
So if you get someone that has just come in, they've not enjoyed it just because they don't like the taste of it. But then have you had any complaints like that where you've had to say, well, that's not my fault that you don't like it?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, our menus are like £50 for 5 courses. You know, we know that's not. I think that's a good price, but you know, we do realise that people have to save up to come to Etch, and I think it's one of those things that you just have to put your trust in our hands, basically. We haven't had it where someone said they don't like the whole menu. They might be like, oh, that dish, you know, I don't like beetroot. I gave it a try and I'm still not convinced. And that's like a grown-up conversation with a guest. I think as long as we haven't made a mistake in the technicality of the dish or the cooking of it, it can be subjective. You know, you could see 5 bits of art on a wall. You could say, I like that one, that one, that one. It doesn't mean the other 2 are wrong or have been created badly. Or they might have been. you know, that's where the analysis would be, whether it's a mistake in the kitchen or whether it's just the clash of taste buds.
Yeah, I think if there's anyone that's going to convince me to extend my palate, it is definitely you, Stephen. So
yeah, I'm up for the challenge, mate. I'm honestly up for the challenge. I think we should do something where you're trying a bit different food. I can't just have you eating mashed potato for the rest of your life, Joe. I'm sorry.
I know it's not good. I'm going all pale and everything. I'm not getting the vitamins that I need, so it's quite bad. Yeah, I mean we could do that. Honestly, I will record it and put it on the Albion Obsessed channel, because it will be an experience. Because as I say, I am terrified of food, and I shouldn't be. But anyway, enough about my 7-year-old palate and more about football. It's been a crazy week in the world of Brighton and Hove Albion. We've been linked to 7, 8, 9 different names in terms of who's going to take over. We've even been linked with the return of Graham Potter. Stephen, I believe he was up to 3rd favourite in the bookies. what would you make of a Graham Potter return?
I'm never a fan of managers coming back to a club or even players coming back. I think that moment has come and gone. Graham Potter, even though he left under a cloud, there's still that sort of like positivity about what he did for the club. And I just think that could all be ruined with a return.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. Alex, we've had a few conversations in the group chat this last week. And I said, and I'm going to get cancelled for this, I said that I am slightly warming to a Graham Potter return. I think just because I'm not excited by any of the other names that we're linked with, except for the fact that we got linked with Xavi yesterday. I'm very excited by that one. Alex, am I being crazy?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think you're being crazy. I think it's just a crazy time, isn't it? There's so much speculation, as you said, and there's all these names. We were digging deep into obscure Swedish managers this week, Joe, as you know, on the group chat, just trying to find out about the manager of Malmo, Ridstorm, who's played some crazy non-positional football, and learning about some Brazilian manager that none of us had heard of before as well. So that's how deep we're going. We're getting proper nerdy about it. Potter, for me, I'm not. I don't know. I don't feel the same way. I don't think, Steve. I think for me, with Potter, it would be, what have you been doing? How have you progressed in that year off? What have you been learning, and how have you grown? And how is that going to reflect on the way we play football? Are we going to play a more attacking brand of football under you? I think is the question most fans would want to ask him. Are we going to score more goals? Because that was sometimes the problem, right?
No, I agree with you, Alex. I think we should be aiming a little bit higher. I think for me, Pochettino is a name that could be slightly out of our reach, or Amorim from Sporting Lisbon. I just get worried about Championship managers that we're linked with, because Brighton are on a journey. We're kind of going up and up these levels, and I don't want this to be a step back. If we look at the change between Potter and De Zerbi, De Zerbi's credentials, he was playing in the Champions League. He had won the league, or was it the cup with who was the team in Ukraine? Shakhtar, that's it. We've always made that step forward, and I think Pochettino would be my number one go-to, just because of how he develops players at Southampton. Chelsea have tried to do it, and he just needed a bit more time, I think. And the spotlight's on Chelsea. You get criticised for every game that doesn't go right, whereas I think you've got a little bit more leeway at Brighton, which would be perfect for a young manager to really push the club forward. So they would be my two ideal choices. Like I said, it does worry me when we're linked to Kieran McKenna, because it was only 2 seasons ago he was in League One. And I know he's done a fantastic job. I'm not taking that away from him. I just think coming to Brighton could be a bit of a step too far.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with an Ipswich fan yesterday, and he was sort of saying, would you take McKenna? And I sort of said, I sort of took his attention to Company's stats in the Championship, and then I said, well, look at what he done with Burnley in the Premier League. He tried to play the same way, and it just didn't work. And I know there's a difference between Burnley players and Brighton players, and you could probably get more out of the Brighton players and get more points for how you want to play. But do the ideas translate? And I'm not sure there's that. I think the gap between the Premier League and the Championship is quite a lot bigger now, and we've seen that because all 3 teams that got promoted have got relegated. And I know Luton only got relegated by the skin of their teeth on the final day, but I think you can clearly see there's a difference. And I think they were only close to Nottingham Forest because of Forest's point deduction. They would have been relegated 2 weeks before the end of the season had that have not happened. So, I think I agree with you, Stephen, about the fact that does McKenna's managerial style translate to the Premier League? I'm not sure, but I think we're in such a horrible market at the moment because almost 4, 5, 6 Premier League teams are sacking or have sacked their manager, and you've got Chelsea looking for a new one. You've probably got United looking for a new one after today, when they definitely lose to Man City. This could age terribly. So it's a horrible market. It's a little bit like the market of when we were trying to sign a central defensive midfielder to replace Moises Caicedo. there's not many of them out there that are world class, and I think the names that we've been linked with, they're not standout names, and I don't think there are many except for Pochettino, as you say, Stephen, who could be slightly out of our price range.
Yeah,
However,
that's my only worry with that.
Yeah.
I actually wanted Company before he went to Bayern. I just thought I know what you're saying. He got Burnley relegated, but his style of football, I think, could work with Brighton or the Leicester manager. I always forget his name. That's the only Championship manager I might consider would be. Where's the Leicester manager?
Mascherano or something along those lines. I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think Chelsea are in.
He's an old Pep Guardiola graduate, isn't he? And I think those sort of managers, I think, would do well with Brighton.
Yeah, definitely.
I think for me, it's the last two managers we got in. So Potter and De Zerbi have both had European experience, and the club wants to get to Europe. So is that a factor? To get to that position, to be regularly qualified for Europe, do we have to have someone who's done it on a regular basis? I guess, or can you learn that pretty quick? I don't know.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Alex, and that's why I think Pochettino or Amorim would be the two, because they've had that experience, and I think it will just get the players on board. I think we are a stable Premier League team, and I think we should be aiming towards the top end of the table. And the only way to do that is to get the players on board to buy into a philosophy, which they have done really well with the last two managers, but kind of push us as hard as we can go.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you do appoint someone that doesn't have the European pedigree, you sort of have to wait a season to be able to say we should now be pushing, because I wouldn't expect if McKenna came in, I wouldn't be sitting here saying, yes, we're going to get European football next season. No. It would very much be another project like Graham Potter was. And don't get me wrong, Graham Potter's time with us at the end was fantastic. We were fourth in the league. I know we'd only played 5 or 6 games in the Premier League at that point, but we were starting to score goals. We were starting to see the fruits of their labour, and it was good. So I don't know. I'm just like thinking, if it was to continue from where it left off with Graham Potter, great appointment. And I think the fans would come on side eventually when the teams start winning games and scoring goals. Football fans are very fickle. We accepted Glenn Murray back after he committed the ultimate sin of going to Crystal Palace. I know he didn't have much of a choice, really. And he's even played for our Sky Sports proclaimed rivals, Bournemouth, as well. So he started scoring goals and we forgave him. So I don't know. I think there is scope to believe that Graham Potter could come back. I'm not saying it's my first choice, but it's just seeming quite realistic at the moment, which is concerning if you're worried about Graham Potter, or exciting if you think that it could carry on from where it left off. When the news broke, Stephen, about De Zerbi leaving, was it just sort of expected? Did you think he might stay another season, or?
I was actually quite shocked, if I'm honest, because I think it was only a couple of games before that he was saying about his commitment to the club, how he wants to push forward and build on this season for next season. And what I love about Brighton is there doesn't tend to be rumours flying out of the club, left, right and centre. You know, like when you look at other clubs in the Premier League, there's always that leak or there's always this. Brighton, it's a very tight-knit club, and they do really well to keep the news within the club. And yeah, it was a complete and utter shock. Since that announcement, though, I kind of do see the logic behind it in a sense. You know, we've had 2 seasons with De Zerbi. Whenever he does well, he's linked with the big clubs. And I think, say he was with us at the start of next season and we are doing quite well, I just see that is a dangerous position to be in, to lose him a quarter of the way through the season. And I think that's where Tony Bloom maybe got to, where he has got a great manager, but maybe Brighton aren't the club, you know, for him.
Yeah, Alex, with the managerial merry-go-round going 10 to the dozen right now, do you think Tony Bloom's thinking, goodness me, what a mistake to make? Or do you think he still backs what he's decided and and it is the right decision for De Zerbi to leave?
I'm going to answer that absolutely. I think no, absolutely no. I don't. The feeling you get about Tony Bloom is that everything he's done is backed with data. It's very data driven. There's a lot of analytics there. I think he would have made those decisions not in isolation, right? That's a decision with Paul Barber, with the other board, with technical members of the board, with the scouts. They would have had, as we know, a list of successors ready. Whether that bit now is going to plan, whether, they expected, it seemed very much. And again, we don't know, we don't know whether this is the press or bookies feeding into all these rumours all the time, whether McKenna was the number one candidate, but obviously he's hot stuff right now. And I think he'll probably end up at United. I think is probably where he's going to end up after Ten Hag gets sacked today. But no, I don't think he's regretting it. I think it's, what was someone said the average time in his term has been like 10 days or something to get a manager in after one's gone. So I think we're due Tuesday, I think is the so I think let's wait and see what happens next week. And I think, after that, if we're still not quite there, then we need to get it done quick to get the pre-season, get the players in, right? That's what we need to do. We need to act very quickly, and they'll be very aware of that, I'm sure.
I love the way Alex is putting the stats back on Tony Bloom with the 10 days, putting the pressure back on him.
Literally, and Alex, it's definitely your fault if on Tuesday we don't make an appointment and the Albion Twitter sphere is going to go absolutely nuts as it likes to do. So there have been a few people starting to question Tony Bloom and Paul Barber about their decision. Stephen, do you think that's fair questioning, or do you think that Brighton fans should, no matter what happens, fully back the boys that have gotten to where they are now?
I think it is stupid. I think looking at what Tony Bloom and Paul Barber have done, we don't even know the results of this decision yet. And to start questioning something before you see the results, I think is completely and utterly ridiculous. But I also understand that's football, and that's what we do. That's why we talk about football all the time. But I've got full confidence in them both.
Yeah, definitely. That's why we've got a podcast, because we like to talk crap about stuff that hasn't or will not happen. So, if you want to hear that conversation, the Albion Obsessed podcast is exactly where you need to be. It's going to be a crazy start to next season, and it's one that I'm really apprehensive for. And Alex, you know me, that in off season I like to make as many concept shirts as possible to make sure that everyone is definitely disappointed with the crap that Nike produce. Are you, as the month of shirt releases gets nearer, are you getting excited for what the club have to offer? Or
yes, always. And we've seen a couple of rumours flying around the internet about what we might be seeing. I always like to see it. I get a little bit more excited about the away shirt, right? I mean, the home shirt is great, and it's usually blue and white, right, and striped. So you know roughly what you're going to get with it. So the kind of the innovation comes in the away shirt. We've had some corkers. The last three in a row have been absolutely spot on as far as I'm concerned. They will be great. So looking forward to seeing what we produce this year.
Definitely. Stephen, I don't know if you know or not, you do follow me on Instagram, so you might do, but I'm a massive football shirt nerd. Do you like football shirts? Do you collect any?
Yeah, I love football shirts. I don't collect them, but I just think with Brighton, with that away shirt like Alex touched on, I think you can go a bit more risque. I think we're an exciting up and coming club. We're not one of the top European giants where those sort of decisions are mega. I think like a nice retro shirt would be cool, or retro inspired shirt for the away kit. Although I did really like the green and black one, I have to say I thought that did look quite cool. But I think you could go a bit more edgy.
Yeah, our regular host Tom will absolutely love you for that answer. He is all about retro 90s football shirts. And Alex, you're probably screaming at Tom for calling the 90s retro, no?
Yeah, that was like last week, right? a couple of weeks ago now. I think, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Exactly that. So let's look at happier times at Brighton Hove Albion, or less stressful times. I won't say happier because I don't think we're unhappy. Let's look at less stressful times at Brighton. We had such a fantastic season, really, on the base of it. I know we finished below Palace, but they didn't have a European tour, so up yours. So Stephen, what did you make of our European ventures, and was you a little bit disappointed with how it ended, or did you think it was just one step too far?
I think it was one step too far. I think De Zerbi took us further than we could have ever have dreamed of, to be honest. I think, we spoke about the podcast, at the beginning of the season, what we all thought. And one of the top things that got mentioned was taking us as far as we could in Europe, because it could be a one-off, couldn't it? And I think the fans really got into that. They loved the experience. To go to different cities around Europe and support Brighton is like a pinch me moment. And I think that's where we're at now as a club, is that we want more. We've been given that drug and we want it again and again and again. And that's why we're looking at managers and critiquing decisions made within the club, because we want to be back in Europe.
Yeah, definitely. Are you saying that Brighton are junkies, Stephen?
Well, yeah, potentially. But I think it is addictive. I think to see teams like Ajax coming to the Brighton Stadium, the American Express Stadium. So I think that is like something you never thought would happen. And to get out of that group after the start we had, it was just quite magical.
Yeah, and beating them twice in the space of 2 weeks as well was something to behold. I remember watching the away game around my friend's house, and I just was sat there pinching myself watching Brighton Hove Albion in the Europa League on a Thursday night playing against Ajax and playing them off the pitch. And I know Ajax didn't have a great season. It's been very much a transition period for them, but you still have to go out there and beat them. And we topped our group. Alex, I just had a thought. Do you think maybe it was a shot in the foot, the fact that we did top our group? Because I think had we have gone to the last 32 and won that game, we would have had more momentum going into the last 16. Do you think that's a distinct possibility that we didn't quite have the momentum going in?
Because we topped the group?
Yeah, so if we'd come second, we would have played in the round of 32 and we could have possibly had more momentum going. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I get you. Yeah. Actually, I've not thought about that. That's a good point. Actually, yeah, maybe, and probably it would have helped us to play someone else as well. I guess just to build up that experience. I mean, for me, we played against Athens, obviously that first game, and lost 3-2. We looked a bit naive, right? And this is supposed to be the weakest team. We were at home, and I think it wasn't until watching that Marseille match in the second half and that comeback, that's when I started to go, oh, we could actually do something here. And still didn't dream to top the group at all. But yeah, maybe it would have been good just to get that extra 2 games in. I mean, the other side of that, Joe, of course, is the injuries. And, it took a toll on our team. And I think you've got to be quite naive to not think that. There was a big toll playing those extra games. And, some players, I think Lallana came out, didn't he, and said that playing the Thursday, Sunday was much harder than playing Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday. He thought it was a harder thing. I don't know why that is, but that was his take on it. And he's the expert, so you got to take what he takes in. So yeah, I mean, that extra round may have been good for us from a experience point of view and a momentum point of view, but may have also put more pressure on our struggling squad.
Yeah, definitely. And Stephen, I think it's something that's been the conversational point this season is the injuries. And a lot of fans have sort of questioned as to why our drop-off has happened so dramatically. And I always come back and say the answer is obvious. No, if you look at our injury list, do you see that as the prime reason as to why we dropped off so dramatically?
I think having the start we did has really helped us. I think De Zerbi, kind of foresaw how difficult it is juggling that European Premier League back-to-back games and try to get as many points on the board as possible before that started. But I think it's the combination of the intent. it's not just the games, it's the intensity of the games. You know, when you're playing Ajax, it's not, and even in the Premier League, there's no real easy teams anymore. It's a very intense league. There's no games where you kind of think, you know what, we can play at 75% and get a win. You've got to be on the ball all the time and do your best. And I think the size of the squad has come into question. Maybe that's where De Zerbi was with Bloom in talking about ambitions for future seasons, but we won't have this problem of European football next season. So there really is no excuse for that next manager to come in and push on, really.
Yeah, definitely. Alex, it's been a conversational piece in the Albion Obsessed group chat, and I think on the last podcast we did when we reacted to the news that De Zerbi was leaving, one of the things that was said was the fact that De Zerbi was pushing for a bit more ambition from the board to maybe get us into Europe straight away next season and spend big. And now the clubs that normally say that sustainability is the most important thing and making sure we have that platform to build off of in the Premier League, and then we can go on to build something slowly. Whereas De Zerbi wanted it now. He wanted to spend big money on big players. So do you think that was the line for Tony Bloom to say, sorry, mate, our stories aren't aligning here, and we need someone that's going to buy into the project that I want?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what's coming out of the club, right? That seems to be what the story that they're putting out there. And it makes sense. I guess, De Zerbi was quite vocal in a few of his press conferences about wanting more players. In January, he was pushing that agenda. And, the club has obviously always stuck to its policy of, we avoid January like the plague, I think, really, don't we? We don't really like delving into that market. Is it the right policy still? Is it going to be what makes us progress? I mean, at some point, we are going to have to, look at that wage structure, look at, whether we lift, whether there's a cap that we need to raise in order to bring in the quality of players that will sustain that challenge on European places, I think. I don't know. Otherwise, we're going to be, it's kind of catch-22, right? It's you have to keep the players to sustain the challenge, but if you don't, then the players will leave and you won't be able to sustain the challenge. So it's that kind of, at some point you've got to do something just to nudge you up, I think.
Yeah, definitely. As we look ahead then to next season, Stephen, what, except for getting the new manager in, what is the most important thing for the club to be doing? Is it bolstering the squad? Is it making sure the injured players come back?
I think bolstering the squad. I think trying to make some more signings, make the squad as competitive as it can be. I think what's interesting about this season is the focus is on the manager, or the end of this season, the focus has been on the manager rather than players leaving, because that was quite a big thing last season with McAllister, Caicedo. Obviously, Colwell was on loan, but there was that, how are we going to survive without these three players? And I think that was the first thing that De Zerbi did quite well. I think this season will be about stabilisation, getting a good squad together, making sure we are having a top half finish, and maybe seeing if there could be something a little bit more towards the end of the season. I did, again, I'm agreeing with Alex quite a lot. I liked what you said about getting those players in that can play at that top level and paying them at that top level. But then I also think Ansu Fati was a little bit of a guinea pig for that example, because he's come from an amazing club. He's got pedigree. He's got this big name around him. But if we didn't have him, I don't think we'd miss him. And that's almost like plays into the hands of Tony Bloom and Paul Barber. I think maybe Fati was a De Zerbi signing as a guinea pig, because they're the sort of players that I think he wants: young, exciting, established world-class players, or towards, that have the future as world-class. But it just didn't seem to fit with the way we were playing.
Yeah, and I think there were a couple of other examples of a De Zerbi signing that didn't quite work. A lot of people were saying Mo Dahoud was a De Zerbi signing. Alex, do you think that is the case? And maybe the club are saying, look, it didn't work. What you wanted didn't work, so it's not going to work next season.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, that will definitely go into the analysis, won't it? We've tried it. We've got this guy, and he's the wonder kid from Barcelona in. We've given him a crack, and what did he do? And he scored a couple of goals, and in the European matches. Obviously, had a great game, couple of great games, and then injured, came back from the injury, didn't really pick up again. And you know, I pointed out, you know, I watched him in a couple of the warm-ups and the matches. He's warming up on his own. He's not playing with anyone. He's not passing the ball around with anyone. You know, he's literally just doing keepy uppies on his own in the middle of the pitch for the last few games. So, you know, he didn't feel part of the squad as well, I don't think. And you know, maybe that's a personality thing. I don't know, but it would be a shame for us to then go, well, that one didn't work out. I don't think you should run a business or any kind of thing where you're trying to up your level by going, well, we tried it once, it didn't work. You know, I think it's like tasting food, right? You try it once and you don't like it, but you've got to keep trying it. You've got to keep going. And you know, I think it would be a shame for us to throw that completely out the window, taking that risk, you know, especially with the finances that we've announced for the last season, right, was pretty spectacular. So I think players will be looking at that as well. Fans will be looking at that as well and going, okay, now's the time to spend some of that money. You want to sustain Europe. We want to sustain that challenge in Europe. That's where we want to see the club. Show us the money, Tony, I think is going to be the message as well. And people will get frustrated, I think, this summer if we don't make a couple of marquee signings at least. I think
I was really impressed with Pedro this season. I think that as a signing, I was a little bit worried about the outlay in the cost, his sort of previous experience, but that's the sort of player I think is like a Brighton Tony Bloom sort of appointment, where you take a gamble on an up and coming player and they almost like flourish in the squad. And I'd rather see that, because I think he has got the potential to go all the way. And it will be interesting to see his journey, rather than going a little bit too far with like an Ansu Fati, for example. I think knowing the players that we're getting in and seeing how they fitting into the squad is really important. And I think the problem with Fati is that he paid so much money, it just alienates himself from the rest of the squad. You almost feel a bit embarrassed, wouldn't you? Like if you're being paid double what most of the other players are on. There's a lot of pressure on you, and it just creates that divide.
Yeah, definitely.
Ask a question. Is there positions, do you guys think, where you can take more of a risk in kind of bringing in a player, and are there positions where you don't want to risk that so much? So would you know, with a centre midfielder, for example, you want someone who's got experience and is solid over a kind of youngster. And I know we got Believer, who's been great at the end of the season. But you'd want someone a bit more experienced in order to shore up those positions, right? Centre back the same, maybe, but kind of in the attack, maybe you can take a bit more of a risk and go for a bit more of a player that maybe perform or not.
Yeah, I think what has happened with João Pedro is that it's actually proven to Tony Bloom that you can spend big money on a player and it can work out. There were a lot of situations before João Pedro came in, Lacadia, Alireza Jahanbash, where we spent big money and it's not worked. So I think Tony Bloom will have a little bit more of a sort of easy mind going into spending big money. But I think you're right, Alex. I think when it comes to an attacker, you maybe do want to spend a little bit more money, or not want to, but you would be more willing to because of what they can give in the output of the team. I think Tony Bloom should be willing to spend big money on a midfielder, because I think that's the glaringly obvious hole in our team, is getting that Moises Caicedo or Alexis McAllister replacement. And I always say after that, I know you can't really replace Moises Caicedo or Alexis McAllister. They're two world-class midfielders. But you have to show a little bit of sorry, there's a lot of banging going on. Sorry. You have to show a little bit of ambition to want to replace, or at least try to replace, Alexis and Moises. Would you agree with that, Stephen, or am I talking out of my bum? You're muted.
There are positions where you can take a bit more of a gamble, and I always thought that's on the wing, because as long as you've got the athleticism and the determination, almost your output is less questioned. I think central midfield, you're dictating pace and the speed of the game. As a striker, you have to score goals. There's no getting away from that. And as a defender, the mistake. You can't make mistakes. So I always think, those young attacking players on the wings almost get a little bit of a free ride unless they don't start getting some assists and a few goals. But then they're also the most exciting, normally the creative ones as well. So they're the sort of flair players that you want to bring into the squad.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think there's a lot for Tony Bloom and Paul Barber to be doing over the summer, over the off season, and we've given them quite a few lists of what Brighton fans expect. So I'll be sending them the link to this podcast, and they can work it off of that. Stephen, just before we sign off, if you could just give us one sort of highlight or like an overall summary of how the Tunnel Club has gone for you this season.
The Tunnel Club has just got bigger and better as the season's gone on, and I've really enjoyed working with the members and looking forward to creating some new exciting menus for next season.
And extending Joe Sayers' palette as well.
Yes, yeah, that's going to be my biggest challenge, I think, of my career. But I'm up for the challenge.
I look forward to it. Putting a Masterchef champion to the sword of trying to extend my palette is going to be quite the sight. So look out for that. Alex, any sort of final thoughts as we sign off?
I want in on that podcast, by the way. I mean, I know I'm a keen foodie, but yeah, I just want to be there just to observe. Yeah,
the second taster.
Yeah, exactly. Just as a kind of counterpoint would be it's only fair. No, it's been great speaking to you. Thanks, Stephen. Really insightful, to learn about the Tunnel Club and about Etch as well. So thanks for coming along. It's been a really good chat, and so glad to hear you're passionate as the club as we are as well. It's good.
So basically, Alex is going to be there to make sure if I say, "Oh, I don't like that," he's going to be there to make sure that people are getting the real answer as to what the food tastes like, because I am nothing to go off of. Honestly,
do you know what? I think we've got a spin-off podcast here, Joe, where we can go just around Brighton getting free meals out of everyone.
I mean, I'm all for it if it makes people happy. So we'll do that. Stephen, thank you so much for coming on to the Albion Obsessed podcast again. As I say, we'll be sending your hat trick ball over to you, and we'll get everyone to sign it as well. I'm sure you really want a signed hat trick ball from the Albion Obsessed crew. So yeah, thank you very much. Good luck next season in the Tunnel Club, and I hope you're making your famous Marmite Bread for the players at the end of the season again next season as well. So yeah, all that's left for me to say is like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this podcast, and we'll see you next time.